It's 1:43 the morning when my phone starts buzzing on the nightstand. I almost ignore it. But something in my gut twists. The screen shows an unknown number, but when I swipe to answer, I hear the tiniest shaking whisper. "Grandma, I'm so hungry. He locked me in. Mom won't wake up." Everything inside me freezes. For a second, the only sound is my heartbeat pounding against my ribs. The clock ticks once, twice. Then I'm on my feet. No coat, no shoes, just keys. I don't even remember grabbing them. Rain lashes against the windshield as I speed down the highway, white knuckles gripping the wheel. Every mile feels longer than the last. I keep calling, but it goes to voicemail. No one answers the door when I get there. So I pick up a rock and break the window. What I find inside that house, it's a nightmare I'll never forget. I wasn't always alone. 3 years ago, this house was filled with laughter, the kind that makes your chest ache from smiling too much. My son, Michael, had a way of turning even the grayest days into something golden. And my little grandson, he'd trail behind him everywhere, wearing that tiny baseball cap 2 sizes too big. Then, one rainy evening, everything changed. A car accident took my son's life in an instant, and just like that, the sound of laughter vanished from these walls. 2 months later, my husband, the love of my life for 38 years, died of a heart attack. The doctors said it was his heart, but I knew better. It was grief. In the middle of all that pain, there was only one thing that kept me going: my grandson. He was my reason to get out of bed, the last living piece of my boy. His mother, my daughter-in-law, moved into the guest room for a while. We clung to each other like people do when the world tilts too fast. Back then, we were all each other had left. But grief doesn't make everyone kinder. A year later, she met someone new. A man who smiled too wide, talked too loud, and always seemed to be watching her phone. There were red flags everywhere. I just told myself I was overprotective. Then came the distance. First, she stopped answering calls. Then the visits became shorter. Then they moved away entirely. The last time I saw my grandson before that call, he looked thinner, smaller. He barely spoke. I pressed a small flip phone into his hand before they drove off. "If you ever need me," I whispered, "call this number." I called every week after that. She never picked up. I told myself they were just trying to build a life together, that I was being dramatic, that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew something was breaking. I just didn't know how bad it really was. Not until that night, when the phone rang at 1:43 a.m. The phone call ended as suddenly as it began. Just silence. I kept staring at the glowing screen like maybe, just maybe, it would ring again. But it didn't. And in that silence, something inside me snapped into motion. I grabbed my keys and flew out the door. The night air was wet and cold, slapping against my skin like it was trying to wake me up. Rain streaked across my windshield, and my wipers thrashed back and forth in a frantic rhythm that matched my heartbeat. 45 minutes. That's how far they lived now. Every minute felt like an hour. I called my daughter-in-law again and again. Straight to voicemail. Not even a ring. I whispered prayers into the darkness, tightening my grip on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The image of his little voice, "Grandma, I'm so hungry. He locked me in," played over and over in my head like a broken record. When I finally turned onto their street, everything felt wrong. The house sat in complete darkness, except for one faint yellow light flickering through the living room window. No movement, no sound. No car in the driveway. I pounded on the front door until my hand ached. "It's Grandma! Open up!" Nothing. I ran to the back, checked every window, every door. Still, nothing. That's when I saw the small rock by the flower bed. I didn't think twice. The glass shattered with a sharp crack that cut through the quiet night like a scream. Cold air rushed out from inside as I climbed through, slicing my palm on the edge. Warm blood dripped down my wrist. The smell hit me first. Stale, beer, cigarettes, garbage, something rotten. The living room was a graveyard of half-empty bottles, ashtrays, and dirty plates. She was there, my daughter-in-law sprawled on the couch, skin pale, chest barely rising. I rushed to her, checked her pulse. She was alive, but she wasn't waking up. Then I heard a soft, trembling cry coming from upstairs. I ran, hand trailing a streak of red on the railing. The door at the end of the hall had a lock bolted on the outside. I unlatched it with shaking fingers. He was sitting on the floor in the corner, wearing pajamas that swallowed his small frame. Hollow cheeks, wide, scared eyes, clutching his daddy's old baseball cap. "Grandma, you came." For a split second, the world goes quiet. All I can hear is his breathing, shallow, shaky. I scoop him into my arms, and he clings to me like he's afraid I'll disappear. His skin feels like paper, cold, too light for an 8-year-old. I whisper, "It's okay, baby. Grandma's here. You're safe now." But my voice cracks halfway through the sentence. Because even as I say it, nothing feels safe. Then I hear it, the slam of a door downstairs. Heavy footsteps. A man's voice, thick with alcohol. "Who the hell's in my house?" I freeze. My heart stutters against my ribs. He's here. The boyfriend. I pull my grandson tighter against me. "Stay behind me," I whisper, stepping into the hallway. He staggers into the living room, red-faced, bottle in one hand, fury in the other. "What the?" I hit the emergency dial on my phone and put it on speaker. "I'm calling 911. Don't come any closer." His face twists, but before he can take another step, the faint wail of sirens echoes down the street. I didn't even realize how hard my hands were shaking until I see the phone trembling. The police arrive through the same broken window I crawled in. Blue and red lights flash through the walls, washing everything in color. 2 officers rush inside. One checks my daughter-in-law on the couch. The other steps between me and the boyfriend. "Sir, put the bottle down and keep your hands where I can see them." He yells, but he's too drunk to fight. They cuff him in less than a minute. Paramedics follow right behind. They lift my daughter-in-law onto a stretcher. She's alive. Barely. They say her blood alcohol level is dangerously high. One of the officers kneels in front of me, flashlight reflecting in his kind eyes. "Ma'am, we need to get your grandson checked out immediately." I nod. He's still clinging to my shirt. I can feel every tiny bone pressing against me. They bundle us into the back of the ambulance together. The sirens wail as we speed through the night, my hand wrapped around his. He looks up at me with those wide, tired eyes. "Can I stay with you now, Grandma?" I squeeze his hand tighter. "Yes, sweetheart. You're coming home with me." The ambulance lights disappeared behind us as the hospital doors swung open. Everything felt too bright, too sterile, too real. My grandson clung to my arm like it was the only solid thing left in the world. And maybe it was. Doctors and nurses moved fast. They checked his weight, hooked him up to IV fluids, spoke in quiet, urgent voices just far enough away that I couldn't catch every word. But I caught the numbers. 38 pounds. I felt it like a punch in the gut. His little hand reached for mine while the nurse wrapped a blood pressure cuff around his thin arm. "Grandma, can I really stay with you now?" he whispered. I didn't trust my voice. So I just nodded and squeezed his hand. The first few days blurred together. Social workers came in, police reports, medical forms, signatures. A woman from CPS looked at me with tired eyes but kind hands. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "He's safe now. Safe." It didn't even feel real. The first morning at home, I made him pancakes the kind his dad used to love. He sat at the kitchen table with his feet dangling off the chair, staring at the plate like it was something fragile. I told him he could eat as much as he wanted. He only took a few bites at first, slowly, hesitantly, like the food might disappear if he wasn't careful. That night, He woke up screaming. 3 times. Every time, I ran to his room. Sometimes he didn't even know where he was. Other times, he whispered, "Don't let him lock me in again." I sat on the floor beside his bed until his breathing slowed and his hand found mine again. The doctors scheduled weekly checkups. They measured his weight, checked his vitals, adjusted his diet. Every week, there was a little more color in his face, a little more strength in his arms. But trauma doesn't heal on a schedule. It lingers in the dark, waiting for quiet moments. Still, for the first time in months, he wasn't hungry. He wasn't alone. He was home. The doctors could heal his body, but I knew the system was the only thing that could protect his future. And the system doesn't move unless you make it move. A week after he came home, I sat in a tiny office above a coffee shop, the rain tapping gently against the window. The lawyer's name was Patricia Short, silver hair, sharp eyes, a voice that didn't waver. She flipped through the hospital records, the police report, the CPS notes, and then looked up at me. "You'll need documentation," she said. "Every bruise, every missed call, every single dollar that was meant for him and didn't get to him. We build a wall of proof, or they'll tear this apart in court." I didn't hesitate. I gathered everything. Bank statements revealed that the survivor benefits my son left behind $1,250 a month hadn't gone to food or clothes or even school. It had gone to bar tabs, gambling, and truck payments. Every receipt felt like a betrayal carved into paper. The neighbor testified she'd seen my grandson climbing out a window one afternoon and handed him a sandwich through the fence. His teacher reported unexplained weight loss and bruises, and that he'd stopped talking in class altogether. His pediatrician confirmed there hadn't been a single visit in over 14 months. Then came the phone call I'll never forget. My daughter-in-law's voice, sharp and furious, cutting through the static. "You had no right to take him. You didn't feed him," I whispered back. "He called me because he thought he might die." "It was one bad night," she snapped. Derek never hurt him. But she didn't ask how he was. Not once. The temporary custody hearing came on a gray Thursday morning. I remember the way the courthouse steps felt cold under my hand as I climbed them with Patricia beside me. Inside, she sat on the other side with her boyfriend clean-shaven, sober-looking, like they could scrub away the truth. The judge, Harriet Powell, flipped through the files, her brow furrowing deeper with every page. 38 pounds, she said slowly. "That's not a difficult period. That's neglect." Their lawyer stammered something about grief and second chances, but it didn't matter. The medical records, the teacher's testimony, the locked door, it all spoke louder than their rehearsed excuses. When the gavel finally came down, the sound echoed through my bones. Temporary custody granted to me for 6 months. Boyfriend barred from contact. Supervised visitation only, contingent on sobriety tests. "Outside," she cried. He stormed off. I turned to my grandson, who'd been waiting with Officer Harper in the hallway. He looked up at me, clutching the baseball cap his dad gave him. "Am I staying with you now, Grandma?" I knelt so we were eye to eye. For real this time. "Really?" "Really." For the first time, his smile didn't disappear after a few seconds. And for the first time, I let myself believe maybe we had a fighting chance. The first weeks after the hearing felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater too long. No more locks, no more late-night calls, no more wondering if he was cold or hungry, just him and me. And the quiet sound of safety. Every morning, he'd wake up to the smell of pancakes or oatmeal, and that same chipped blue mug I used to drink coffee from when his dad was little. It wasn't much, but it was ours. The doctors scheduled weekly weigh-ins. I marked every single one on the kitchen calendar with a red pen. Month 1, 10 pounds gained. Month 2, another 8. By month 3, he'd reached a healthy weight for his age. His cheeks started to fill out again. His shoulders didn't look so fragile. He laughed sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. The nightmares didn't disappear overnight. There were still nights when I'd find him standing in the hallway, clutching that old baseball cap, whispering, "I don't want to go back." And every time, I'd kneel, hold his face in my hands, and say, "You're not going back. Not ever." Therapy became part of our routine. Dr. Sanders, a gentle man with a soft voice and patience carved from stone, told me, "Trauma doesn't heal on a schedule." I didn't need him to explain. I could see it in my grandson's eyes. Then came school. September. His first day at the new elementary, 6 blocks away. He held my hand so tight it almost hurt. When the bell rang, his bottom lip trembled. I walked him right up to the door. Miss Phillips, his new teacher, knelt down to his level with a warm smile and said, "I hear you like dinosaurs." He nodded. Just once. But it was enough. By October, he'd made his first friend Marcus. Saturday playdates turned into a ritual. Laughter slowly found its way back into our house. But healing wasn't just ours. The court had ordered weekly supervised visits with his mother. Saturdays, 10 a.m., 1 hour. Week 1, she didn't show. Week 2, she came drunk. They turned her away. Week 3, she came sober, sat across the table, and he didn't say a word. Just stared at the clock. By the 6th week, he stopped asking if she was coming. "She's my mom," he whispered one night. "But I don't want to see her." I kissed the top of his head. "Then you don't have to. Not until you want to." His shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. The months rolled on quietly. School plays, hot chocolate nights, the sound of his feet running down the hallway in the morning. The nightmares came less often. His laughter grew louder. And me? I learned to breathe again. For 6 months, we weren't just surviving. We were becoming a family again. 6 months passed in what felt like a lifetime. My kitchen calendar was crowded with red circles, doctor visits, therapy appointments, weigh-ins, court dates. But this date, this one, was different. The full custody hearing. Patricia met me on the courthouse steps, clutching a leather folder packed with evidence. "They've hired a real lawyer this time," she warned. "They're going to come after your age. But we've got everything we need." The courtroom was packed. My grandson sat in the waiting room with his therapist. He didn't want to see them. I promised him he wouldn't have to unless the judge said so. His tiny voice echoed in my mind. What if they make me go back? I took a deep breath and walked in. They were already there. She wore a neat navy dress, hair pulled back, hands folded in her lap. He sat beside her in a clean shirt, the picture of forced respectability. But all I could see was the locked door, the empty plate, the little voice whispering at 1:43 a.m. Patricia started with the medical records, photos, hospital charts, the doctor's testimony. 38 pounds, the doctor said, voice steady. That is not a temporary lapse. That's prolonged neglect. The judge scribbled something down without looking up. The defense tried to chip away at me next. When he's 18, you'll be how old? I stared straight at him. Old enough to have raised his father. Old enough to fight for him when no one else did. They didn't have much. They had excuses, tears. I was grieving. I was sick that night. Derek never hurt him. But they couldn't change the fact that she showed up to only 4 of 26 visitations. That the locks were on the outside. That survivor's benefits paid for a truck, not food. Then it was the boyfriend's turn. Arms crossed, defiant. The kid was difficult. He needed boundaries. Patricia slid the bank records across the table. Is that why you spent $1,250 a month at bars and casinos? His jaw clenched. He said nothing after that. 15 minutes later, the judge returned. Her voice was firm, almost maternal. I've been on this bench 30 years. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen. Age is not a barrier when the alternative is a child suffering. She looked straight at me. Full permanent custody granted to Mrs. Judith. The rest blurred. I remember the gavel hitting the desk. my breath catching in my throat, my knees almost giving out. He was waiting outside with Officer Harper. "What happened, Grandma?" I knelt down, cupped his cheeks, and felt the warmth in them that wasn't there months ago. "You're staying with me. For good." His eyes widened. "Really? Really?" He threw his arms around my neck and held on like he never wanted to let go, and I held him back just as tight. 8 months after the custody ruling, the house grew quieter. Not empty, just steadier. My grandson had a routine now. School, therapy, weekend bike rides, laughter in the kitchen. But one corner of our lives stayed silent. His mother. No calls, no birthday cards, not even a voicemail. For months, it was as if she'd vanished. The visitation center eventually banned her after 10 missed appointments. The first time she called after that, she was screaming, accusing, spitting blame through the phone. "You turned him against me," she shouted. "No," I said quietly. "You did that all on your own." The second time, it wasn't her voice. It was his, the boyfriend's. Drunk, slurred, mean. I hung up before he could finish his sentence. Then, one gray morning, Patricia called. "She's in the hospital," she said. "Alcohol poisoning. Nearly died." I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around my mug like it could anchor me. "Did he visit her?" I asked. "No," Patricia replied softly. "He's gone. She asked for your number." A part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, the one that still remembered the woman who once held my grandson like a newborn, couldn't. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and sadness. I walked down a long hallway, past rooms with monitors beeping softly. Room 412. She lay there, pale as the sheets, IV lines snaking from her arms. When her eyes flicked open, they weren't filled with fire like before, just emptiness. "Judith," she whispered. "You came." I stood at the foot of her bed, unsure what to feel. Anger, pity, grief. She swallowed hard. "I've lost everything. Him, my home, my son." Her voice cracked on the last word. "And it's my fault." I didn't rush to comfort her. Not this time. "You didn't lose him," I said quietly. "You gave him away. Every single day you chose something else over him." Tears spilled down her cheeks. The doctor came in, speaking with a tone that didn't sugarcoat the truth. "Your liver's failing. You have 90 days to start treatment, or you won't make it a year." Her voice trembled. "If I get sober, will you let me see him again?" I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel the weight of it. "Prove it first," I finally said. "Not for me, for him." She nodded weakly. "Okay, I'll do the program." As I walked out of that sterile room, I didn't know if I believed her, but for the first time, she sounded less like a storm and more like someone who'd finally hit the bottom. I didn't expect her to keep her word, but she did. The treatment program began just a week after that hospital visit. At first, all I got were updates from the social worker clinical sentences. "She's fighting the counselors. She's angry. She threatened to leave twice." It didn't surprise me. She'd spent years running from her pain. It wasn't going to melt away in a month. But then, something shifted. In the second month, the reports changed. She's participating in group sessions. She's writing letters to her son. She's showing up on time. By the third month, she completed the full program. She filed for divorce from the man who helped destroy everything. He didn't even contest it. Then one morning, an envelope arrived in the mail. My name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a letter, no excuses, no grand speeches, just truth. I starved my son. I let a man hurt him. I chose alcohol over everything. I can't undo what I did. All I can do is try to be better now. If he ever wants to see me, I'll be here. Sober. Trying. I didn't respond right away. I folded the letter and tucked it into the top drawer of my nightstand, where it stayed for weeks. But the updates kept coming. 6 months sober, a job at a grocery store, daily AA meetings, her own apartment. She wasn't just saying the words anymore. She was living them. One summer afternoon, I watched my grandson, now 10, racing his bike down the street, laughter cutting through the warm air, and I thought, maybe it was time. I sat him down at the kitchen table, sunlight slanting across his face. "Sweetheart," I said carefully, "your mom wants to see you." He froze. "Do I have to go?" "No," I told him softly. "Not unless you want to. And you'll always live here. This is your home." He stared at his hands for a long time. "What if she's different?" "Then you'll see it for yourself," I said. "And if she's not, you walk away." The first supervised visit was quiet, almost painfully so. She arrived 10 minutes early, pacing outside the center, hands fidgeting. When he walked in, she whispered, "Hi, sweetheart." He mumbled, "Hi back," standing near the door like he needed an escape route. She didn't push, she didn't beg, she just talked, carefully, gently. "Can I see you again?" she asked at the end. He looked at me. I didn't answer for him. He nodded. "Okay." In the car on the way home, he stared out the window and whispered, "She seemed different." And for the first time in years, his words didn't carry fear, just uncertainty. And that was enough. 3 years. That's how long it's been since the night the phone rang at 1:43 a.m. 3 years since I climbed through a broken window, bleeding and shaking. 3 years since I heard that little voice whisper, "Grandma, I'm so hungry." Now, that same boy is almost 11. His laughter fills every corner of this house again. Not the fragile laughter I used to hear, but the real kind. The kind that shakes his shoulders and lights up his face. He has friends, a favorite dinosaur, and a bike with red racing stripes he swears makes him faster. He eats until he's full, sleeps without checking the door, and for the first time in his life, he doesn't live in fear of anyone. But the biggest change isn't just in him, it's in her. She's been sober for over 18 months now. She has a job, a little apartment, and a new life that she built from the ground up. It's not perfect, but it's real. She never asked to take him back, not once. She just showed up, month after month. And then one morning, while eating cereal at the kitchen table, he looked up at me with those warm brown eyes and said, "Grandma, I want Mom to come to my birthday." I froze. "Are you sure?" He nodded slowly. "I want to try." The day of his 11th birthday was warm, sunlight spilling through the yard. 6 of his friends ran around with party hats, screaming about cake, and then she arrived. She was early hands clutching a wrapped box, her shoulders tense, but her eyes clear. She brought him a baseball glove. "Your dad had one just like this," she whispered. He smiled. Not the forced kind, a real smile. She stayed an hour, helped clean up, talked to the other parents without fidgeting or fading away. When she left, she hugged him gently, no pressure, just presence. That night, as I stood at the sink rinsing dishes, she walked over, voice soft. "Thank you for not giving up on him, on me." I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Later, the 3 of us sat around the dinner table, pot roast, mashed potatoes, his favorite. A picture of my son hung on the wall above us. My grandson's school project lay open on the table, a family tree, branching out in different directions but still connected at the roots. We weren't perfect. We never would be. But the house was warm, the air was calm, and the boy who once whispered into the phone in fear was safe, fed, and loved. I glanced out the window at the setting Sunday. For the first time in years, the silence felt peaceful. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living, together. When I look at him now, laughing, growing, living, I think back to that night. The night my phone rang at 1:43 a.m. The night everything changed. Back then, I was just a grandmother with shaking hands and a terrified heart. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have power. I just had love. And sometimes, love is enough to break a locked door. But here's the thing about this story, it's not just about pain. It's about choosing to fight when everything tells you to give up. It's about one child finding safety and a broken family learning how to build again, piece by piece. We weren't perfect. We still aren't. But we're together. And sometimes, that's all that matters. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe she deserved a second chance? If you were in my shoes, would you have let her back into his life? Leave your answer in the comments below. Your voice matters more than you think. And if this story moved you, if you felt something hit, like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Every story like this reminds someone out there that they're not alone.